Hey, welcome to part two of this series that Dan and I put together talking about Fort Knox and also Heritage. So wanted to talk a little bit about, we've brought to you all the people from, attorneys to syndicators to lenders to insurance people. We brought all these people in to kind of help you guys understand of all the different people that it takes to do it. But I'm going to be prideful for a minute. We're the last two and probably the best piece that you need to know here, right? So we're actually going to bring you, Dan brought to you his business, in the last episode. I'm going to bring you my business and where we're making an impact to help you be successful in the multifamily. So I hope you guys watch and enjoy this episode and what we can do and what we can bring. I'm going to jump into the heritage side and talk about kind of what we are seeing today bring some immediate value to the people in across the nation and properties we're working. So, in the spirit of keeping it at 200 units, I'm going to keep it at 200
Perfect.
units. So, if you take a 200 unit property and most people, they say, oh, I'm going to do 100%. Well, you're lying to yourself or you're just lying, period. You're never going to do 100% of the units. You're going to do
You're talking about for rehab, right?
For rehab,
Yeah.
for rehab. You're going to do 70%. History has proven itself that most people on a rehab project are going to do 70% of the units. Now, some people do as little as 30, and some people go in with a perform a written at 80 to 90%. But I'm going to use 70 for our number today because I think it's a good number and it's a safe number of what you can achieve across a property. So, 200 unit property, you're going to rehab 70% of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, normally in today's market, you're spending about $14,000 on those, but I'm going to use a lower number today because
I don't want to spend 14.
I don't want to spend
10.
Yeah, well, great. You're typical, right? Until I ask you where you're going to spend it, and I show you how you're going to spend it, and it comes out it's going to be $14,000. But anyway, I'm going to say we're going to use 10 because that's what people, when they're writing their performance, seem to be writing them at until they talk to me and I tell them they're wrong. So we're going to stay with that number today. So 10,000 on 70%, that brings you to a $1.4 million interior rehab. And today I'm only going to talk about interior rehabs for what we're doing today.
Because everything else is fixed costs.
Everything
Parking
else,
lots, roofs, all that.
You're not going to change that by doing it faster, slower, or any of that. So we're going to work on that. So I have $1.4 million on a 200 unit property to spend it. So what we've created is something called an in-place rehab. The in-place rehab is everything that we can do in the property while the tenant's living there. You're like, what? While they're living there? Why are you going to do that? Here's the reason. Just like water conservation creates immediate value and an immediate stickiness for them to stay because it shows that you care, not about water necessarily, but you care about the tenants because now they have cleaner toilets. And just so y'all know, women like clean toilets and new toilets. And so the women make most of the decisions if they're going to stay in the property or they're going to leave. So if you have a clean toilet, a new toilet, women tend to want to stay. So that's one piece of an in-place rehab. We also do water conservation. So that's one piece. But new appliances, new lighting, blinds in there. You can do granite countertops in there. You can do door hardware and cabinet hardware. So you have a total of 7 things that you can do in there. And we have, we'll call it an a la carte type item, right? Which one of these 7 do you want to do so that fits in your budget? So you pick, and then you do it across the whole property. Just like you do water conservation, you come in and you sweep across the whole property and you get the whole property done. You do that with our in-place rehab. And the reasons you're doing it that way are because if they feel in touch what's in place, when they go to renew, they're going to want to renew at the higher rate. So I'm going to say if your budget was 70% for a $200 a month increase for that, you can get that $200 a month increase and not do flooring and not do painting. And you're spending that same amount across the whole property. So I'll give you a basic number. To do all the items I listed, it's about $7,300 to do everything. If you were to take that 1.4 budget, it means you have $7,000 to spend, right? So you can either choose not to do one of the items I picked, or you can bring it up to, $200 or $300 a door, and you can do that. Now, again, I told you that $10,000 a door was light. It still is. So maybe you make it 11 and you're covered, right? So
yeah, and if you do it at your 14,
you're really covered.
You're making a lot of money.
Yeah, and then you have money to do it. So,
well, let's be honest too, right? So just because the property is purchased and planned to be renovating 70% of the units, right, doesn't mean that that's actually going to happen, because
right.
it's a process that has to happen, right? Yeah. So you have to wait till to remodel the rehab, do a full turn. You have to wait till the unit becomes unoccupied, right? So, and then you have to stagger the renovations as they're becoming unoccupied, and they're that relies on people to actually move out when their term expires. And does that happen? So it's not actually going to happen when you put it in. So your rent increases are probably never going to hit 70%, even if that's the way it's set up from the beginning. Yeah. When you do in place from day one, I mean, you're coming through and you're doing the whole property.
Yep.
And you're doing it quick.
Yeah.
And you're getting those rent increases day one, right?
Yeah.
And the total of the rent increases adds up to more than the 70% if you would have done it that way.
Great point. Thanks for bringing that up, because it's as their leases expire. So I'm going to give you a 12-month runway, right? So as their leases expire, that's when you can increase the rent. And so it takes 1 year to hit your pro forma at year 2 or 3. Typically, it's year 3 where they're trying to hit their pro forma, but you can do it within the first 12 months by only doing the in-place rehab. So people are like, why would I do a in-place rehab when they're just going to tear things up?
Do you like to refinance your property and make money? I mean, I'm just going to ask the question.
Exactly. Well, when you do it and you can increase the rents, the things that we're putting in are the things that they don't tear up. The things that they tear up are the walls and the flooring.
Yep.
Countertops if they're laminate or resurfaced and things. But in this model, I'm putting in granite countertops, and
that's nice of you.
Very, very rarely are those damaged, right? So you're going in and you're doing that. But also with the water conservation you're doing, your expenses on water are dropping drastically. People go, well, I'm doing rubs. I can't make any more money. I'm actually losing revenue because my water's going down. Well, actually, that's false, because if you save somebody on their water bill, and averages 50, but most water conservation companies will come in and say 30, just to be conservative on that number.
They're going to be more willing to pay higher rent if their water is low.
You got it.
Right?
So you decrease their expense on water by, let's call it $40, right?
Sure.
You decrease it by $40. It's much easier to hit that $200 rent bump that you're giving them.
Yep.
Now it's only $160 because you've saved them there. So those types of things are really saving. Also, with going with the lighting package that we put in, you're going to go all LED. That actually is going to decrease their spend on electric, on their electric bills. So you're coming in with the good to help them save money. Yeah, you're going to hit them with a rent bump, but the rent bump is a much softer rent bump once you save them the money, and they've already experienced it over 6 or 8 months that they've had all of this in place before you hit them with the increase, right? So there's a lot of things that come into play here that you have to factor in. And we understand that not everybody can do this, right? I mean, there are some that are in really disarray that people are living in, and they just truly need to vacate. there's a program for that too. I'm not saying this works for every property. However, when we're doing it on properties, it's really, really working well. And people are, within the first 12 months have, really recognized the fullness of what it can do. So
Yep.
it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's just I think, kind of just a mindset shift a little bit, from you have to vacate this unit and earn this rent increase. Well, we're seeing higher occupancies in a lot of the areas that we're in, and you don't necessarily have to do it that way. I mean, if you do it like this and you make these rent increases mandatory at renewal, you're either going to get a renewal or you're going to get a new tenant, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then I'm excluding your product because you've got lending in place now, so
Yep.
we don't want to include that in here. I'm trying to utilize our budget for me, so I'm
Sure.
going to be selfish. But in this, I mean, it's the same budget, right? And if you say, well, I don't have $7,000 a unit, I have $6,500 a unit. Okay, great. Let's talk about it. Let's show what we can cut out to give you the best bang for the buck, to save them money, to be able to do that.
Well,
to be
and
able to
maybe
get your rent increase.
And maybe they already have granite countertops.
Yeah.
Maybe there may be some of those things on that list that aren't required on a property anyway.
Yeah, very true. And I guess the one real important piece on this is how long does it take to do a unit? And we start out doing about 5 a day on average if all the material's there, and we got up to doing 10 plus a day as we move through them. Every property's different. We have to learn the property. Everybody has to
Yep.
learn the systems and put everything in place. But I'm going to go real conservative. Once the product's in place and we have it all on site and we're ready to rock and roll, we can do a 200 unit property within 2 months.
That's pretty cool.
So 2 months may take us 30 days to get all the product there, but within 2 months after that, we are rocking and rolling and we're walking off your property. So maybe we start with the expiring leases first, right? And then we kind of go through that. But it works very well. People have been very pleased. And what really we've noticed is the tenants that are pleased with it, because they may have lived here for 5-6 years and nobody's taking care of the property on the interior since they've lived there. And now this shows, hey, we got new ownership and they're taking care of us. They
Yep.
care about us. And
Well-
we may get hit with a rent hike, but we're seeing the
Yeah.
benefit today.
Well, and a lot of times the tenants are getting, if they're loyal and stay at the property, they're kind of getting screwed over because they stay. They don't get their unit improved
Right.
because they're loyal and they stay.
Yeah. So it's the exact point. People stayed at a property for a long time. You have residents that have been, some properties for 10 plus
They
years.
still have the green
and
shag
they
carpeting.
still- and they still, have 80s, 70s, 80s
Yeah.
decor, and you're like, oh, wow, this needs renovating. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, I love it, and I've kept it pristine. And they're right. It's still shag.
We saw one where they could have taken their refrigerator and probably put it in a museum and got paid for it.
For sure. So, we're out here. I mean, we see a lot of properties, and the one thing that Dan and I specifically look at are ways to help you guys as business owners, syndicators, come in and really take care of the property, take care of the tenant, make them feel secure, make them feel safe, make them feel wanted, right? And all of the stuff that we offer really brings that, and then create a stickiness factor so you can keep your tenants, because we all know that tenant turnover is expensive. It costs
Yep.
money to have tenant turnover and do that. So we want to help on that as well.
Yeah, and between what both of our companies offer, it's like a full. I mean, it completely encapsulates your entire CapEx needs for your property, right?
Yeah.
We can take it from contract all the way through to completion and sale, and help you along the entire process and eliminate the need for
Yeah.
a lot of headaches.
Yeah, so true. So, obviously this is just a sliver of what I do. We've talked extensive about what Dan does, but We really felt that, you know, only in this market, but as we're coming out of the down market, because we truly are coming out of this down market in a lot of different areas. Still have ways to go, but we're on our way out. That how we can all be better and how we can plan things to be different. And so in the in-place rehab from the heritage side, when I just talk about it at these events we go to, that is one of the things that people are most attracted to and want to know more about it. So if you want to know more, reach out to us and let us know how we can help. But
yeah, and the other thing too is we had a lot of people. We've had a lot of people guests on, talking about their businesses and what they do, and then we had a lot of people asking us, "Hey, why haven't you told us, you know, exactly what you do and in more detail than kind of just breezing through it?"
So we're excited to bring you this episode today, and we really appreciate your time on watching the 2-part series here. But if you have questions, is there anything else we can answer, please come back to us, let us know, shoot us an email.
I would call Dax out on his numbers and make him
make me show it to you in real time. So but let us know. We'd like to hear from you, and we'll see you next time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. How long did that?